It just keeps on getting worse for the Buffalo Sabres as their winless drought keeps on going, and a meeting with the team's owner reveals some shocking details that Buffalo Sabres fans do not want to hear. We're going to break it all down for you guys coming up on this episode of Hattrick HQ. But before we get into it, we got to say that 91% of you guys watching these videos aren't subscribed to the channel, so if you want to stay up to date on the latest news around the NHL, make sure you go down below and hit that subscribe button. But guys, there's some big news coming out of Buffalo today. Before we get into that, we got to talk about how bad this team's playing right now. I'm sorry, Sabres fans. I want you to succeed, but it's just not happening. Since 2010, teams with a more than 14 game losing streak, the Buffalo Sabres have two 14-plus game losing streaks, and the rest of the league matches them. That is just how bad this franchise has been in this past decade, and even past 2 decades. They haven't had any success, and they're currently on another 10-game losing streak, which, if that gets to 14, they could be breaking this record and holding it on their own. So, it sucks to be a Sabres fan right now. There's no doubt about it. But it gets even worse for you guys. As sources say today that the team's owner, Terry Pegula, and GM Kevin Adams met in Montreal, where he said, "We believe in you, but the solution is within this room," is what he told the players, is what he's told to the coaching staff. And they also said to not expect a big trade. It makes no sense to me to why they wouldn't expect a big trade when you're on a 10-game losing streak and you're probably the laughing stock of the NHL at this point. But we keep on moving as they are in the bottom of the league. Their next game, obviously, against the Montreal Canadiens. Battle of the bottom. They could be sitting at the bottom of the Atlantic Division after this next game. And Mark, to me, it's kind of crazy that this team is not looking for a trade when you've been so bad. I know they have a great young core there, but it almost seems like it's time for a change in Buffalo.
Yeah, looking at this team, I can understand the worry of trading players out. I know Dylan Cousins' name has been floating around a lot, even linked to the Vancouver Canucks. But the last thing they want to do is trade out another young forward, especially a center. We've seen it with Jack Eichel. We've seen it with Ryan O'Reilly. They moved out players that went on to a successful careers and won championships. So I think panicking, making a trade doesn't seem like the right thing to do, but they also can't continue to be in this realm of not being a playoff team, not producing enough to even fight for a playoff spot. Year after year, the fans are not going to be happy. I know management and the owners probably aren't happy. I understand trying to figure this out in the room, but Darius, looking at this, do you think there's another solution, or do you think the trade is the only answer?
I'm actually going to take the other side of things, and I think that the last thing that the Buffalo Sabres need right now is any type of change. This is a team over the last 9 or 10 years that has seen more head coaches than years played, and they've shipped players out like Ryan O'Reilly, who've gone on to win Stanley Cups. They've shipped multiple players out that are now playing 4 Stanley Cups regularly, right, in Sam Reinhart. So I think the last thing they need is a change. They have a lot of offensive weapons there. They just brought in a new coach. Again, I don't know if I agree with that coaching hire. That was, I think, maybe a nostalgia move a little bit too much. But I think that they have a lot of offensive weapons. And the answer, unfortunately, I think has to come from that room. And if they are able to somehow come together, then they're going to figure it out. But I think this is a team that just needs any type of stability to get things rolling here, because if you keep changing things, there is no culture, there's nothing there, and we've seen that. That's the reason why they're kind of here where they are now. So I don't know if I would make any changes, to be honest, which sounds kind of crazy because something's got to give here, but I think that the answer might be in that room. And they added some pretty good pieces this summer too. Like, one guy I feel bad for is Ryan McLeod. This guy went from battling for the Stanley Cup to battling for the basement. So like, something's got to give here over the next couple of weeks or a couple of games. So I think that, will they turn it around? I'm not sure, but I think the last thing that they need is to fire the coach or fire the GM or any of that stuff anymore. I think this team, this organization needs some type of stability. But Casey, what are you seeing? Because some of the players this year are underperforming as well.
Yeah, they definitely need to figure it out. I want to throw back to what you were talking about, the new coach. We did get a quote from him on this. He basically said he's lost for words. He takes all the blame onto himself, and he said, it's on him. It's not on anybody else. It's on him to why the reason this team is not succeeding. But like you said, to the players here, I mean, you have some guys who've been playing good this season. Tage Thompson, he was out, missed some time with injury, and came back and has been on great form ever since then. Alex Tuck, he's always been a guy who's been in the mix and has played well for this team. But there are a lot of guys who are kind of underperforming. I mean, I wouldn't say too underperforming, but like Rasmus Dahlin, you would expect him to be up a little bit higher at this point in the season. I would say 19 points or 25 games is still great, but you would like to see him at a bit higher rate than that. I mean, there's another guy here that's not even on this list in Zach Benson. I know he's young. He had a great season last year, but you would expect him to have, some more contribution to this team. But I mean, it's very weird to see how this team has been so far, because it really doesn't make sense to me why this team isn't succeeding. I mean, it looked like they were coming out of a rebuild at the beginning of the season. They had Dahlin, who was playing great, Owen Power, who was playing great. They just got Bowen Byram. This decor looked tremendous, and so far this season, Mark, this looked really lackluster.
Yeah, because you're looking at this, there's such a nice young core of players within this team. I mean, Tage Thompson is not considered young anymore, but looking at, if you just wanted to bring the stats up, there's a lot of guys in their early to mid 20s on this list. Owen Power is someone that should blossom into a top 4 defenseman at some point. Bowen Byram is, yes, dealing with concussion issues, it seems, every season, but is another player that seems like that could be a top 4. We've seen him be a top 4 on a Stanley Cup winning team with the Colorado Avalanche. I think the biggest thing this team needs is maybe more of a vocal leader. Maybe they go out and pick up a guy that's not going to cost too much, but someone they can inject into this locker room to get the momentum going. I'm not saying get someone like Ryan Reeves, but Ryan Reeves was a guy that was added to the Toronto Maple Leafs room. And I know Buffalo fans, you hate Toronto fans, but adding someone to the room like this that can be vocal, get the guys fired up, might be what Buffalo needs. And Darius, do you think maybe if they go out, pick up a veteran to maybe not to compete for a playoff spot, but to add more vocal guys to the room, do you think that could kind of be the tipping point for the team?
I think that's a great point. I think that's another reason why the Chicago Blackhawks, for example, went out and got their now captain, Nick Foligno, right? That's exactly why. So it's not like he's going to make a huge difference on the scoreboard, but that is a big reason. If you bring up the stats again, Casey, there's something there that catches my eye. They only have one guy right now who's in double digits in goal scoring, and that's Tage Thompson. So they are really lacking in that department, despite having some really good weapons on paper and a lot of other teams talking up their forwards as well. So I thought that was very interesting. And again, yeah, you bring up a good point. Maybe they need, it doesn't have to be a big splash. It doesn't have to be a big trade, but somebody who's going to, start talking. There's a lot of talk. You brought up the Toronto Maple Leafs. I hate to bring the Maple Leafs into this conversation. Sorry, Sabres fans, but they went out and got Reeves for that reason. Their bench was too quiet. Like something as simple as that can really help turn certain things around. So maybe there's a small move in there that they can make. But again, I don't know if, making another huge shakeup is the answer. They got to get going here. They have to figure it out. I think this really started 2 seasons ago. They finished with 91 points. Tage Thompson had an amazing year. It looked like they're well on their way. They made a few mistakes roster personnel wise. And I think they thought that the goaltending was a lot better than it was. And I still think that their goaltending is going to be really good. I think UPL is a great goaltender, and Devin Levi is going to make his way there. But it's tough right now. And I think they made a couple mistakes over the last 2 years that have really led them to this, where I feel like if they just allowed themselves to naturally go through the rebuild stage, which they were building up to again, even though they've gone through about 3 rebuilds in the last 10 years, they might be in a better spot.
Yeah, you guys definitely make great points there. I mean, I just kind of thought of it as you guys were talking about it. I mean, the Sabres kind of lost their glue guy in Kyle Okposo, man. He was that guy for them. He was the vocal leader. He was just a guy who, yeah, he might get you 40 points every year, but he's going to help out these young guys, get going. He's going to be vocal on the ice, vocal on the bench. And ever since he left, they haven't really had a guy like that. So I really do like that point. I think it's kind of like Corey Perry in Edmonton. He went to Edmonton to kind of be that glue guy. He was the glue guy in Montreal when they went on that Stanley Cup run. And you need players like that on your team that, yeah, maybe they'll get you 35, 40 points and they'll ride the fourth line, but they are going to help out in the locker room with, you know, all the mental part of the game that gets under talked, in my opinion. I think, you know, these guys know they're on a 10-game slide and they hate it. But how are they going to overcome that? They need someone to fire them up. I definitely agree with that take. We want to hear your guys' thoughts down below, Sabres fans. What do you think about the state of the team right now? Let us know down below. If you enjoyed this one, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to hit 8,000 subscribers here before Christmas, so we appreciate it if you give us a little early Christmas gift. Go down below, hit that subscribe button. And if you want to check out a video we did earlier today, it'll be popping up on your screen right now. But as always, I've been your host, Casey, alongside my co-hosts, Mark Pye and Darius Domingues. We'll catch you in the next one.